Welcome back, students and others who find this video. Let's talk about Keyness Analysis, aka keyword analysis. Now, before we jump into that, I just want to real quick point out two meanings or senses of the word keyword in the corpus linguistics world. The first one is the keyword and context meaning, or concordance lines that we've seen before, right? You have a node word and you have left and right context around the node word. That's called concordances or concordance lines, or also keyword and context, or KWIC, K-W-I-C for short, right? So that's one sense of the word keyword. In this sense here, what we're talking about with keyness analysis or keyword analysis is what a corpus is, or what words kind of typify a corpus. In fact, let's jump out of the slide and go look at the slide deck and go look at what Susan Huntston, right, the author of our textbook, Corpus and Applied Linguistics, second edition from 2022. Chapter 4, right, talks about frequency and the various manifestations or uses of frequency, one of which is keywords here in section 4.4, keywords. And she points out that on the right of my screen here, the name keywords comes from a concept initially developed by Williams to refer to ideas that are culturally salient or prominent at a given point in history, but around which there is dispute, not only around the word itself, but the idea it refers to. And applying that to corpus linguistics, she points out that Scott in 97, top left of my screen, in developing his keywords software, Scott deliberately used the same term to refer to words that are important because they occur significantly more frequently in a specialized corpus, or even a single text, than in a more general corpus. They therefore indicate what a corpus or text is about, right? What it's about. Okay, so let's jump back here. Yeah, so when a word or feature appears more frequently in a target corpus or text than you would expect by chance, given some reference corpus. So you have two corpora here. You have a target corpus and a reference corpus. And you're saying what words occur more often in this target corpus in comparison to this reference corpus. So the idea of target corpus and reference corpus is super important in keyness analysis. We often think of keyness as aboutness because it will tell us what the target corpus or text is about. Like many things in corpus linguistics, we may think we know what our corpus or text is about, but this offers a quantitative approach to determine what the corpus or text is about, at least with a handful of keywords, words that come up. So in short, keyness or keyword analysis answers the question, given this reference corpus, what is special about this target corpus? That's what keyness analysis answers. Why or what can we compute using keyness? Well, let's take an example. We can take a corpus of books by the Bronte sisters, and we could look at one particular author or one particular book, right? What we could say, here's a corpus, and here's one book, one novel. What is this book about in reference to the other books? Or we could take, what is this, one particular author, what does Charlotte write about, that second solid bullet there. And if we could compare, we could take all the writings by Emily and compare them to all the writings by Anne. Say, what does Emily seem to write about? What are the keywords that come out of Emily's writings when we're comparing them to Anne, or vice versa? Second example on the bottom part of my screen. Let me remove myself for a second. Corpus of newspaper articles. You can have a text be the article and the subcorpus be a newspaper section, like the editorial section, or sports, or cultural entertainment. So what is this article about? What is this whole section about? What is different about the local news versus the world global news? Those are some of the answers we could try and get with keyness analysis. Okay, so let's practice this right now. Let's go to our old friend COCA. And in COCA, there is a keyness analysis tool. And so let's go ahead and take a look. Now in COCA, the target corpus will be what you specify. We'll create a little virtual corpus in COCA. And the reference corpus will always be the whole overall COCA corpus. We can't really change that in this particular tool in COCA. what we do, I have the instructions here. The second bullet there's, I'll walk through this here in a second, but it's pretty easy to do. There's also a tutorial. I have a link here on my slides, which I'll link to in the description of this video. I have a link to a tutorial by Mark Davies himself, the creator of COCA, and all the English COCA, englishcorpora.org, Corpora there, if you like to look at that. But let's just go to COCA now. And here we are in COCA, our old friend, right? I'm already logged in. You log in up here, right? So what you can do is right here, it says text virtual. I'm in the search tab, right? Text virtual right there. Click on that. And then make sure you're logged in. It may say, hey, you need to refresh because you're not logged in. You just click on, log in or refresher to make sure you're logged in. Now, I've already created some corpora here below for this very class in the past, but we'll just create a new one. What we can do is we can click on Create Corpus right there. It says Create Corpus. Click on that, and then there's various things you can do here. You can specify article title, specify exact sources or years. You can specify sub-registers of these 8 registers in COCA. Well, these 9 registers, actually. Now that I'm looking at that, he has these separated out. Movie and TVs are separated out. These 9 registers. You can put in words in a text, right, using internal criteria, what Hunson talks about, internal criteria. You can search for specific words in the text here. What I want to do, let's say I want to create a corpus of liberal-leaning, I'll use the term liberal-leaning media in the U.S., ABC, NBC, and MSNBC, let's see, maybe CNN as well. So I'm going to call these liberal-leaning, and I'm going to submit, and then I'm going to save as, I guess I'll just call it liberal news. And it's saying, hey, here I've found a bunch of stuff. These are some things from what you asked me to find. The number of articles, what is it, 5,000? I think it defaults to 5,000 articles from ABC, NBC, and CNN, MSNBC. Okay, that looks good. And I will say, yeah, save that. I'm going to say submit. So right up here, I wrote in save as, I wrote liberal_news. That's going to be the name of this little virtual mini corpus that I created within COCA. And then click submit. There we go. So I have it right there, liberal news. And then, like I show here, after you do that, submit, find keywords, nouns or verbs, etc. So we're going to click on find keywords back in here. You, below this little section, it says find keywords. And the third one down here is liberal news. And if I just click on noun right there, so the third row down, because that's, I have several before, I'll click on noun. And then it's going to use all of COCA as the reference corpus and find keywords. What do we have? Think, be, insurgent. We have some hyphenated stuff here. I wonder if we get some full words. There's troop. There's some kind of junk stuff. This is hyphenated. Crosstalk, sanction, juror, good, tabloid, civilian, pan-terrorist, graphic, etc. So it felt that these words seemed to typify or talk about what the liberal news corpus is that I created on the fly within COCA talks about in comparison to all of COCA. Right? We could obviously do this with conservative leaning. So let's try that. Let's make, I went back to the search tab up here on the top left of my screen. And then I'll click on create corpus right there again. Create corpus. And then let me grab Fox. Let's go Fox News there. Cool. I'll click submit. It's going to find a bunch of text from Fox News. I'll save this as, I'll call it conservative news, I guess. And then I'll click submit here, right there. And good, there it is, conservative news. If I click on noun, second row of my little table here, conservative news, I'll click on noun. What are the keyword nouns that seem to typify Fox News in comparison to all of other, to COCA? We have illegal, One sanctioned liberal protester. There's troop again. Lawmaker, terrorist, and delegate. So we're kind of getting like kind of cross, like pan news type words. But anyway, so that's how you do keyword analysis in COCA. You can play around with creating different corpora. I just did sections of genre that Mark Davies has already created. You can put in text in here, like, if you want to search on money, create a money corpus, you can search for all the text in all of COCA with the word money in it and create a little virtual small subcorpus. And then compare that little subcorpus, its keywords, to all of COCA, doing the same thing. Or say tennis. That was another corpus I created in the past, tennis or whatever else. Okay, so again, that's how you do that in COCA. That's how you do keyword analysis in COCA. Again, I have a link to Mark Davis's tutorial here. And that's slide 4. Let me put in some slide numbers for fun real quick on the fly while recording. Did it do it? No, I'm not seeing it. But anyway, slide number 4 right there. The next one I want to practice with, the next tool I want to practice with is AntConc. So we need to open up a target corpus and a reference corpus. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to AntConc and do this. We're going to open up File, go to the Open Corpus Manager. We're going to specify the target corpus and the reference corpus. It's 2 separate things. And then return to the main window and then go to the Keyword tab and click on Start. And then we enjoy. So let's do that. Here's our old friend, AntConc. Let me bump up the font size so you can see clearly what I'm doing here. Okay. Let's go up to the File menu, top left of my screen, second option down, Open Corpus Manager. I have Jane Austen here, so I'll put Jane Austen as my target corpus. You can see right there, it says target corpus. Make this a little bit bigger for us. Down here it says open as target. And I'll say, sure, open that as target. Wonderful. And at the top right of my screen, it says reference corpus up there. I'm going to click on reference corpus. Now, I don't have a reference corpus already created, so I'm going to actually create one on the fly real quick. I'm going to go up to the top left and go to Raw, Files. I'm going to call this Saints. I'm going to add some files. Actually, I'll add a directory. Let's see if it can correctly grab all the files in a subdirectory, all the subdirectories. So on my computer, I have the 4 volumes of the Saints history of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. 168 texts. I found those. The basic indexer will be fine. Yep. And then we do bottom left of my screen, create. Corpus has been created. Wonderful. That'll be my reference corpus. See that says reference corpus. Wonderful. I think that did that correctly. Did I do that correctly? No, I guess do I have to come back here? No, we're good. Okay. Then the bottom right of my screen says return to main window. Wonderful. So on the top left, it says target corpus, Jane Austen, 6 files, 700-something thousand words. Bottom left of my screen, it says reference corpus, Saints, 168 files, 700-something thousand words. Wonderful. So now we're going to go to keyword. The tool across the top here says keyword. On the kind of right side of this banner, across the top, within AntConc, and it says keyword. Now we're just going to come down here and click Start at the bottom center of my screen, right down in there. And so when we're looking at Jane Austen as a target corpus in reference to Saints as Jane Austen as target, Saints as reference. These are the words that seem to kind of typify or talk about what Jane Austen's novels are in comparison to Saints. What do we have here? We have I. That's interesting because it kind of makes sense to me. Jane Austen has fiction, so there'll be a lot of I, whereas Saints is a history, probably less use of the word I in a history of a church, right? The word her, that makes sense to me because Jane Austen has a lot of female protagonists, right? I think all of them are. And so her is very much near the top in comparison to Saints. It, you, very, Mr. Okay, Mr. is a word that seems to typify Jane Austen's novels in comparison to Saints, etc. I'll let you take a look at those keywords. There you have it. You can specify what type of metric it uses to do keyword analysis. We can just use the default for now, but if interested, you can go up to the settings, top of the screen settings, and then tool settings, and then go into keyword on the left-hand side there. It says keyword, and then you can change the likelihood measure. There are other options in there. Won't take too much time to explain each of these, but you can mess around with that. The effect size measure, this is, there's quite a few in there. MI stands for mutual information 1, 2, and 3, or original 2 and 3. Log dice is the one that Sketch Engine uses. So anyway, you can mess around with those and see how they affect the results if you'd like. That's how you do it in AntConc, pretty easy. The kind of hardest thing is to make sure you set up the target corpus and the reference corpus correctly. And then you just come over to this keyword tool and click start. And then you can mess around with the settings if you want to see differences in the results. That's AntConc, our old friend AntConc. Now our other friend, LanceBox X, has this ability as well. So you're going to open up the tools. You're going to open up the words tool. You're going to compute term lists if needed. And then you're going to click on the key icon in the top right corner of the table and then specify a reference corpus. And then we enjoy. So let's jump over to our old friend, or maybe new friend, LanceBox X. Here it is. Let's jump over to the keyword tool, or excuse me, the word tool. So there's a couple ways to do that, right? You can come up here to the top left and click on that switch tool function. If you just hover over this little 3 horizontal lines with dots on them, it says switch tool. You click on that, and then the bottom one with the W is the word tool within LanceBox. It had already computed term lists, and so I didn't need to do it here. It may have said for you, do you want to compute term lists? And you say yes, go ahead and do that. So here we have, these are just frequency lists, but up here in the center of the top of the part of the screen, there's a little key icon. It's not super apparent that that's what that is, but it's a key. It says keywords. We click on it. And then it says specify a reference corpus. Now I don't have anything other than saints in the example corpus that comes with, like already pre-installed with LanceBox X. So I'll just go ahead and specify that as the reference corpus. And I'll say use the whole corpus for that. And then it goes off and does the mathematical magic behind the scenes, and we end up with these words that seem to typify my target corpus, which, let me back up. Let's go back here. I actually want to specify saints as my target corpus. So you specify saints up here, right there. And you come over to key, the key icon there in the top part of my screen, right there. Okay. And then you specify a reference corpus. In this case, I'll just specify the example corpus, the whole corpus. And then it gives you the keywords that appear in saints more frequently than expected in comparison to what you'd expect given the example corpus in LanceBox X. So we have church, apostrophe S, his, her, Joseph, the word saints, she, Smith, journal, young, president, mission. Yep. Okay. These seem like words that seem to typify or talk about what saints is about in comparison to their example corpus, which again, I can't remember off the top of my head what it is. Might be some BNC text. I'm not totally sure at the moment. If I had another corpus, you could create a new corpus in here, right? I'm not going to go through that step right now. We've done so in the past. But that's how you do it in LanceBox X. Again, super easy. A couple clicks, bing, bing, bang, and you have some keywords in your target corpus in comparison to a reference corpus. Wonderful. That is LanceBox X. I do that there. Now, there's a couple ways you could figure out how to group the words. There's like theory-driven groupings, like what in your previous research about these different genre or these different registers of language would cause you to say, oh, it looks like these kind of group together. These words seem to go together. These other words seem to talk about this topic, and so I'll put this label, this 1 or 2 word label on this group. Or maybe over here I'll have another group that these words seem to be cohesively or connected somehow semantically. So I'll use this label over here, right? That's kind of the way you can go about groupings. And so we're not going to take the time right now in this video to do that type of thing, but I encourage you to do so, to look at the keywords that come out of your tool and say, it looks like the thing that is being talked about in this target corpus are these topics. And like these few words seem to talk about this topic, and these few words seem to talk about that topic. And that's how you can go about creating groupings and labels on those groups. Here's some steps for keyness analysis, and this can vary depending on what you're examining. One way is just unidirectionally. Just create a list sorted by keyness or the frequency or dispersion. You categorize words into groups, and you verify the validity of those groupings using concordance lines. Meaning you pull up the concordance tool, and you look for those particular keywords and see if they seem to be talking about, like with the full context, if they seem to be talking about what you thought they were talking about. Another way, with the second solid bullet here on this slide, is to compare bidirectionally. You generate a list sorted by keyness metric or frequency or dispersion the other way around, like you switch the target and the reference corpora. And for example, with keyness analysis. And you compare the words or groups from the previous list, when you had, say, corpus A as a target, with the second list, list B, where you had, say, corpus B as the target. And then again, you go into the concordance lines and search for specific terms and make sure that they are talking about what you think they're talking about, like the label you put on your groups. That's one way to do keyness analysis. Those are the ways I do keyness analysis. Okay, now I see that it's kind of covering up a bit of my slide there. Switch target and reference corpora. Okay, wonderful. Well, that brings us to a conclusion on this video, and that's how you do keyness analysis. Again, it is a way to try and figure out what a target corpus is talking about with reference to a reference corpus, or the keys that seem to typify or talk about what things are talked about in the target corpus. All right, thanks for watching. See you next time.